Welcome to CEO Insights. I'm Marilyn de Guzman with Investing News Network. My guest today is David Woodall, CEO and Managing Director of Aura Energy, a mineral resource company based in Australia. Nice to see you, David.
Hi, Marilyn. Pleased to be here.
Yes, good to see you again. So let's start our conversation. Could you please give us an overview of the projects that Aura Energy is focused on at the moment?
Yeah, Aura Energy is a transitioning company from an explorer into a developer. We have two projects, the Tiris Project, which is solely a uranium project in Mauritania, and we've got the Häggån project in Sweden, which is a polymetallic deposit, and that we are starting to progress.
Right. So, you have two projects. One of the most interesting one is, of course, the Tiris project, and that's the project that's facilitating your transition from an explorer to producer. So, could you talk about some of the significant, what are the key stages that you would be undergoing to satisfy the goals for this transition to becoming a producer?
Yeah, so the Tiris Project is a low-cost capital and operating near-term uranium producer that we're progressing to be what we call production ready. And that means that when we have our offtakes, when we have our financing, and also when the market is in a position to continually support the process of the operation, then we will then look to start the construction and go into production. So it's a low cost operating cost, all-in sustaining costs lower than $28 a pound. It is a low capital cost. It's a modular form that allows us to expand as we progress and get it ramped up. So it has significant benefits when you compare it to other hard rock type deposits.
Right. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit for our viewers? When you say a low cost advantage, what are those and what makes this a project low cost and then that potential for further exploration?
A great question, Marilyn. So when you look at the Tiris project, if you look at the mining, it's all free dig, so we don't drill and blast. Our depth of mining averages about 4 meters of depth, and the deepest part of the mine goes down to 7 meters. So there's some significant operating benefits in that. When you go into the processing, we take our run-of-mine ore, we then put it through a beneficiation process, and that process basically sizes the material to a regular size. Then we put it into a scrubber, and we want to collect the fines. So when we finish that process, only 10 to 15% of the material we mine actually goes into the leaching circuit. Importantly, we see a feed grade from our mine, which is about 257 parts per million. Our feed grade to our leaching circuit is over 2,000 parts per million. So we see a significant increase in that. When you put all that together, you've got low operating costs. So the size of the processing plant is 20% of what it would normally be if you have to treat the whole run of mine ore. You don't have to crush and grind. So on our own stated rate of 4.5 million tons a year, we're probably saving somewhere between 120 and 190 million US dollars. So all of those come together to a project that has an all-in sustaining cost of $28.77 a pound. So it's well set up.
Right. And then there's also that potential exploration upside. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so this is a new, what I would call a new emerging uranium province globally. We have been focused very much on getting a resource that is large enough to support the development of a project, and we're there. Our focus now is to make this project sustainable, not just in a cost basis, but in a long-term growth basis, which we've spoken to the Mauritanian government about. It's an ability that we think that this will become a significant global uranium province globally.
Right, and uranium is certainly in the radar for global the push for a low carbon electric future, I guess. So you've also done a recent review of the feasibility study to optimize the Tiris project. Could you talk a bit more about that and how that review was achieved here?
Yes. So we completed a drilling program in 2022, and that increased the percentage of measured and indicated resources of our global resource. And that allowed us to sustain an increased production. So our initial plan is the first 2 years is producing about 800,000 pounds per year, and then expanding that modularly to over 2 million pounds. And that has significant benefits, because when you talk to financiers and investors, they have two issues that they look at. One is, what is your project delivery risk? And given that the small size of what we're proposing to build initially, we will be able to do that, given that the macroeconomic forecast for uranium is very positive. Then you've also got the issue where you've got the ramp up. So, of course, the larger the operation, the more people, the more complex to get that ramp up done successfully. And in our plan, we start small, we can get our plant up and running, we can debottleneck, we can get that moving forward, and then expand to over 2 million pounds a year within 2 years of finishing construction.
Right. So as far as the Tiris project, what are the next steps that's you're moving forward with?
So, great question. So with Tiris, we've submitted our final permit to the government of Mauritania. That is to the export of uranium. And we've been advised that we would expect that sort of September, October of this year. We're progressing now with conversations with various financiers to work out the best process to finance this development, both in the phase 1 and phase 2, and critically, we're talking with the end users, the utilities, to get a defined offtake to allow us to show that the resource, the revenue that we're proposing to come from this is well founded. So that's the focus we've got to do, and within that, we'll also commence a drilling program, in sort of August, September this year, to start looking at growing that resource and then make it a truly sustainable and world-class uranium area.
Right. And in addition to Tiris, you also have the Häggån project. So what makes this project compelling, and what does Aura need to do to progress this project?
Yeah, so Häggån is what they call a polymetallic deposit. So it has very key battery metals, uranium, and also produces a byproduct of sulfate of potash, which is a fertilizer used in the agricultural industry, to name a few. So in the battery metals, we've got vanadium, we've got nickel, we've got molybdenum, and we've got zinc. So that forms a part of the processing that we intend to progress. And at the moment, there's a uranium ban in Sweden, and the Swedish government has said that they intend to overturn that ban. And we worked very closely. I returned from Sweden about 2 weeks ago after conversations with most parties in the government, in the parliament there, and there is an understanding that it's not just a uranium mine, that most of these mines, there's large mines, rare earth mines in Sweden that can feed the global transition to decarbonised energy. So all of these deposits would need to be extracted and mined as a part of this transition if you're not going to rely on a very lack of diversity in your supply chain. So that's very clearly understood in Sweden and clearly understood in the EU. So Häggån, we will progress that. So our progression is we are working on completing a scoping study that will be released imminently in the next month or so. That forms a part of an application to go to a exploitation permit, which allows us then to progress into the permitting and feasibility studies that we would progress post that. So that would see us going forward with the Häggån project.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing all your, latest updates from your company, and looking forward to see more news from Tiris and both Tiris and Häggån.
Thanks, Marilyn. Pleased to speak to you.
You too. And thanks for joining, everyone. Join us again next time for another engaging conversation on CEO Insights.